Today is December 15th, 2023. We are interviewing Helen Weil. My name is Esther Finder. Ms. Weil is in Laguna Woods, California. I am in Henderson, Nevada in the United States, and the language will be English. Thank you for speaking with us today. What is your name, and can you please spell it?
My name is Helen Weil, Helen, Weil, spelled Weil.
What was your name at birth, and could you spell that?
Yes, my name at birth was Helene Levy, Helene, and Levy, Levy.
Where were you born?
I was born in a small cottage in a small town by the name of Garzweiler in Western Germany.
Could you spell that for us too?
Sure. Garzweiler. Garzweiler.
And when were you born?
I was born July 22nd, 1921.
And how old are you today?
102.
Did you have a large family in Germany, and had they been there many generations?
Yes, I understand that where I lived in Garzweiler, parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents were living in the same house, as a matter of fact. So my family was always in that area, apparently.
Did you have many aunts and uncles and cousins?
I did. In fact, the reason I know it is when when my son was bar mitzvah and they were all invited, and not my son, my brother Irvin had a bar mitzvah, and we had a photo taken outdoors, and all these cousins and uncles were on that photo, which I have now here to show you later.
And what was your father's name?
Sigmund, Siegmund.
And he was born in the same...
He was born, yes, I believe, in the same town, Sigmund Levy, yes.
And what work did he do?
He was, I first say it in German, he was ein Viehhändler, which means he traded cattle, horses and cows. He traveled all over Germany in his car and bought and sold cattle. He was a cattle dealer.
And what was your mother's name?
Her name was Berta, Berta. She was a teacher, and in those years that was a rule: when you got married, you could not teach anymore. So she stopped teaching when she got married.
You mentioned you had a brother. Was it just the one sibling that you had?
No, we were 4 children. My older sister, Hilde, was a year and a half older than I, and then I was the second. Then came Erwin, my brother, Erwin was I'm spelling his first name for you. And then came Marianne, my younger sister.
What religious traditions did your family observe in your childhood?
Oh, ask me that question again. I didn't hear the beginning. What?
What religious traditions did your family observe during your childhood?
Yeah, well, we were Jewish, and we had a synagogue in town, although Garzweiler was a very small place, but we did have a synagogue, and we went to shul on Friday nights, every Friday night. And then afterwards, the people who lived in the surrounding towns or villages came to our house after and came for coffee and cake every week.
Did you have a favorite religious holiday? And if so, why was it your favorite?
Well, you know, all religious holidays are pleasant, and we all celebrated them because my mother came from a very religious household or family, my father not so, and so we celebrated all Jewish holidays in a very, very pleasant and wonderful way.
What are some of your earliest memories from your childhood?
They were all good memories because we were a happy family, lived in a lovely home. I remember well the location. We had a wonderful vegetable garden. We had a lovely fruit tree garden next to our house. We were there in the country. And so my memory of my childhood were wonderful. My parents were very happy together. And the 4 children, we never fought for some reason. A good reason, I guess. We liked each other. And so I have very wonderful and pleasant memories of my childhood.
How would you describe relations between the Jews and the Christians in your community before Hitler?
Good question. We had neighbors. As you know, we lived in a very small community. They were all pleasant. There was no difference. We had non-Jewish friends and non-Jewish neighbors, and we were all good friends and close.
What do you remember about starting school?
Starting school. First, I went to school locally in Weil, but my parents realized that I was a very good student, so they decided I have to go to a better school. There was no high school in Weil, so it was not easy for me to go to high school. I had to go first by train. First, I had to walk to the train station, which was about a mile every morning. Took a train to Mönchengladbach, that's the town where that high school was, and then took a train every day, and from the train station walked to the school.
What else do you remember from the days before Hitler and the Nazis came to power?
Well, everything was wonderful. We, as I said before, I had non-Jewish friends. I mean, just there was no difference somehow at that time.
Can you please walk us through the changes when Hitler started to generate changes in Germany?
I will, yes. Well, one night, and I'm now talking about the Kristallnacht, the Crystal Night, when first we were all sleeping, and then rocks were thrown into all the windows of our house. Then some characters, Nazis, wearing the uniform, came into our house. It was the middle of the night. They went into my parents' bedroom, took my father out of his bed, and took him and put him, which we later on found out, into nearby jail. And they put him sitting on the floor in that jail and made him sit there all night. The next morning, they took him out and brought him home again. That's one thing. I have many memories of that night. For instance, they came upstairs where we were sleeping, and my mother had a very large a large cabinet, like a piece of furniture with many, many glass shelves, on which were glass bottles and glass jars, all filled with food, fruit and vegetables which she had preserved, since we had a garden and it came all from our garden. So they went upstairs, opened that cabinet, took all the fruit and vegetables which were in glass jars, and threw them through the window out into our backyard. The next morning, there was a big, big heap of glass and fruit and vegetables. I remember it so well that night, of course.
Let me bring you back to the time before Kristallnacht. Did you notice any changes in your teachers or your classmates in school before Kristallnacht?
No, I did not. I went.
So
no, did not.
This
I
was
did
the
not.
first time.
I did not feel any anti-Semitism before.
Do you remember the 1936 Olympics?
Well, looking back now, the Olympics? No, not really. Why is the question?
I was just wondering if there was a change in your community, if you felt anything during that time when so many people came to Germany. But that's okay.
No, it did not. I did not notice it because, as I said, I've lived in this very small community. But I just don't know if this is the right time to tell you this. But once the Nazis came, they put every week a new newspaper on my street. There was they put newspaper called the Stürmer, STU umlaut RMER. That was the name of them. And I remember so well that they put that newspaper, anti-Jews, with pictures of whatever on in our street and other streets too, of course. Yeah.
And this was before Kristallnacht.
Yes.
Also, before Kristallnacht, was there any talk in your family about leaving Germany?
No, not at all. No, we didn't feel it where we lived in this small country. We did not feel the anti-Semitism as people did in larger towns.
After the events of Kristallnacht, how did your family react? What changes did your family consider?
Well, we realized we had to leave. They realized they had to leave Germany. They had thought that they could live where they were, and things would change maybe to the better. And after Kristallnacht, of course, we all felt the need to leave as soon as possible. Now, my parents couldn't leave because the United States had a quota. And although my Aunt Fanny lived here in New York, my mother's sister, Aunt Fanny, and she was willing to give us the affidavits, and did, but they couldn't enter the United States at that time. So in desperation, I wrote a letter to my dentist who had moved to Northern England and said, please find me a family. I would like to leave Germany as soon as possible. Find me a family that would take me in. And I went as a 17-year-old, left Germany, and went to England and lived with a family there in Northern England.
Before we leave Germany, I have just a few more questions. In what ways did your neighbors treat you differently after Kristallnacht? Or did things go back to the way they had been before?
We were very fortunate. After Kristallnacht, they even felt sorrier for us. In fact, next to us lived a Dutch family, and she came over the next morning and said, if you want to go, I will drive you across the border into Holland, and then you can go from there to wherever you want to go to, which was so kind of her. And she did. I packed a little suitcase with one pair of shoes and one dress, and she drove me across the border from Western Germany into Holland, and then she put me in a boat, and I went to Northern England, to the town of Hull, Hull, in Yorkshire, England, where I had connected with this family that were going to take me into their home.
Is there anything else that you would like people to understand about the situation for Jews in Germany at that time?
You know, I understand in different towns, of course, there was more anti-Semitism. Where I lived, as I said earlier, we did not feel it at all. People still spoke to us. Our neighbors were still kind and friendly. So we were lucky to live where we lived at the time for that reason. I understand it was very different in different areas.
How did you feel once you crossed the border out of Germany?
Very relieved and very happy. But yet I was not with my parents. You know, it's a different story. I was only 17 and a half years old, and I had just been living in Cologne for a while. My parents knew that I would be on my own in the world eventually. So what they did is they insisted that I should learn a trade before leaving. They sent me to Cologne to a dressmaker. I stayed at a special home near the dressmaker, and I learned dressmaking. So when they said, when you go by yourself to the United States eventually, I would be able to make a living and could get a job. That was a wonderful, very wonderful, smart suggestion. I did it. And so by the time I entered New York City, I was a dressmaker from Europe. I got a job right away on Madison Avenue.
Can you share with us what it was like to say goodbye to your parents when you went to England?
When I said goodbye to my parents, I thought that we would see them soon again. So we never would have thought we would never see them again, since we had no idea. And my sister Mariana, who was too young to leave as we did, you know, she had to stay with my parents in Germany.
So what about your other siblings?
My sister Hilda, luckily, had left 1 year earlier to go to New York, and Fanny had sent her the affidavit, and she was able to already leave and went to New York.
And didn't you have another sibling?
No,
your brother Ernst?
No, it's just Hilda and my youngest and my brother. My brother applied to go to Southern England. There was at that time a program for young, only boys, not women, not girls, to work on farms. They needed farm workers in Southern England. So he signed up, and because he had already learned in my home, he could already milk a cow, he could already take care of things in the country. And so he was very lucky. He ended up in southern England on a farm.
What were your expectations of England and what were your first impressions?
I was never in London. When I went to England, I went to Hull in northern England, a small town. But what happened was, very shortly after I lived there, I was very happy there, by the way. There were good people who took me into their home. But the war broke out between Germany and England. And I became an enemy alien in England. So therefore, it was nothing really bad, except once a week I had to go to the post office and be fingerprinted as an enemy alien.
When did you arrive in England?
What did I
When did you arrive
arrive
in
England? As I said, I was 17 and a half years old. I was born 1921.
When you got there, what did people ask you about your life in Germany, or did nobody ask you?
Nobody asked me. The people that took me into their home were Jewish, and they had only Jewish friends, and it's a small community. Nobody asked me about my experiences in Germany at all. Maybe they didn't want to upset me.
What was the name of the family that took you in?
I'm thinking. It doesn't come to me right this moment. I can tell you later, okay?
Okay. And when you got to England, did you go to school or did you go to work?
You know, I did not go to school, and I helped the people that took me into their home had a barber shop and beauty parlor in the same building where we also lived. And so I helped in the beauty parlor because we were not allowed to work. It was not allowed at that time for refugees, at least in that area. I don't know if it was all over or not.
What adjustments were difficult for you when you came to England?
Nothing was hard for me, and because, number one, I knew the language. I had learned English in Germany in school. So when I came to England, I could speak the language. That was a big help. And I'm an optimist by nature. And I always, when you're an optimist, you feel everything will work out. So I was not anxious. I was not uptight. And so when I arrived in England, it worked well.
How much did you know about what was happening in Germany while you were in England?
We read the papers, but we did not really know everything. I don't know if the papers didn't want to print things like that, or if I at that time didn't want to read it. I don't know. Don't know. It's different today. We watch television all day long and we know what's going on. Very different then, of course.
For how long were you able to communicate with your parents?
Well, I have, first my mother wrote to me almost every few days. I have the letters still here that she wrote to me from Germany. So we wrote, of course. In those years, it was so different as it is today. So we just communicated by mail. But my mother never wrote that it was bad. I guess she didn't want to upset me. And she also realized probably that I would hear what was going on. And of course, I was very sad that they couldn't come out and get out.
From your perspective, in England. How were events in Germany presented to the British people in the
In the
newspapers or
newspaper,
on the radio?
good question. I did not, first of all, we didn't have a newspaper. We did not read, we didn't have a radio. They had a radio, I'm assuming, but I really did not have much in the way of information at that time.
Were you aware that Germany invaded Poland?
Yes. Yeah.
And what do you remember of England's declaration of war?
It was just politics. Yeah, and it was terrible because there was a war between England and Germany. And but you know, in those years, and when you're young, and it's different today. Life is different, as we all know. We have phones, we have information. In those years, it was so different. We just were worried about our daily routine, our daily lives more, and our health. I just didn't, I wished I had more education, that I could go to college or something, but we did what we could do. But I was never upset, not my nature.
Can you share with us what your legal status was in England now that England and Germany were at war? You mentioned something a few moments ago.
Yeah, I was
But
supposed to be.
could you tell us?
Well, they considered me an enemy alien. I mentioned that earlier because, as
Right.
I already mentioned that. Yeah. So that was my legal status. And I was a young girl.
What did that mean to you, that you were an illegal alien? You mentioned you didn't have many restrictions.
That's correct.
They just made you go for fingerprints.
Yes.
So what did it mean to you personally to be legally considered an enemy alien?
It did not bother me at all. At all.
Did you experience or witness any anti-Semitic or any anti-foreign expressions when you were in England?
No, I did not.
And how long did you stay in the UK?
A year and a half.
When did you leave and why?
England? Well, I was very anxious. I had a visa number, and I was waiting for the visa number to be called. At that time, that's how they worked it. So the people wouldn't come in droves to the United States at the same time. So I had a number. And one day I was told by the German consulate or that my number was up and I could now leave England to go to the United States. And I was very, very happy, naturally.
When was this?
I did not hear it.
When?
Oh, when?
When was it? When were you allowed to come to the United States? Even just the year.
Let me think. I was 20 years old when I came to the United States. Yeah.
Is there anything else that comes to mind before we leave Europe about your time either in Germany or in England? Anything that you haven't shared that you'd like to share before we come to the United States?
I only had, as I said, a good life, good neighbors, good friends. So I never felt the anti-Semitism that was there in various areas. But Kristallnacht, I want to mention also that our synagogue in Garzweiler was burned, completely burned.
How did you travel to the United States?
I came to the United States, what year?
No, how did you travel? Who were the other passengers?
okay, by boat, of course. Yeah, a big boat.
And so who were some of the other passengers with you? Were they also refugees or
No,
were they
no, no, they
tourists?
were not refugees. I was one of the few refugees. In fact, I didn't really talk to many people there. I just was happy to be where I was. And most people were more adults or different backgrounds. No, it was just very pleasant. And not only that, this may sound funny to you. You know, I have this accordion, and I wanted to entertain them one evening on the boat. And I took my accordion out and I played for them. They were so happy. It really was a good thing for everyone.
In addition to your accordion, what else did you take with you when you came to the United States?
Very, very little. 10 marks, one pair of shoes, and one dress. And I didn't earn any money in England, so I arrived a poor but happy person.
What were your expectations of America? What were your first impressions of
Well,
America?
you know, I expected skyscrapers all over. When I was first picked up at Ellis Island and went by with my Aunt Fanny in the car to her home, I thought, you know, from photos you had seen, New York was all skyscrapers. And I noticed there were all kinds of normal areas there. That was my first impression.
When you came here, where did you go?
My aunt had rented a room for me with a family. You know how people rented rooms in uptown Manhattan on the east side? No, on the west side, one block from Riverside Drive. And she rented a room for me where I lived. And since I got a job right away, I could afford it. And I cooked for myself. I was allowed to, we called it kitchen privileges in those years. Kitchen privileges, where when you rented, you could use their kitchen at first. And I did that.
How were you treated by Americans when you came?
What? What?
How were you treated by Americans when you came?
How did I see them?
How were you treated? No, how were you treated? How did they receive
treated.
you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Very well, right away. You know, when you're friendly and smile, you get treated well in life. And that's so true even today.
Did anybody ask you about what was going on in Europe?
No, did not.
How did the American perspective on the war in Europe differ from the British perspective of what was going on in Europe?
You know what? To me, I was young. I never talked to people about that. So the answer is I would not know at all how they felt about it. People, we never talked about that. People just wanted to know that I'm comfortable, that I was happy where I was, that I was successful getting a job, that kind of thing.
Were you able to get any news from family when you were in the United States, or had that already stopped?
That stopped. That stopped. Yes. Except a few letters that I mentioned earlier.
You were here in the United States when Pearl Harbor was bombed.
Yes.
And the United States entered the war. What do you remember about that time period?
It was the news, nothing more than that. It didn't scare me. It didn't make me feel, oh my God, what's going to be next, like we would do today. Yeah. But today we are much more informed and interested.
During the war, how much did you know about what was happening to the Jews in Europe?
I did not know much about what was happening to the Jews in Europe.
When did you start to realize how bad things were?
Very soon, but we didn't, again, it's so different, and I said that before already. Today we are all informed. We have phones, we have television, very different, of course. Different world, a different life.
Did you witness or experience any anti-Semitism in the United States?
I did not. Not personally, ever, never.
What else stands out in your mind about the warriors in the United States? Is there anything that you want to share with us that maybe we should understand about what was going on in the United States during World War II?
I really can't go into that. I really, no, I'd rather not.
What was your social life like?
My social life was good. I was always a happy person. And so I made friends very quickly. And then, of course, my Aunt Fanny lived, I told you that already, I believe, with the Weil family. She had a furnished room there. And through their son and daughter, I met many people, young people my age. And we walked, we had clubs, where we met sometimes in the evening, but I was never a social butterfly type person. I was a very happy, content person just to have friends. And I did. I made friends easily.
What steps did you take after the war to find out what happened to your parents and the sister that was left behind?
I tell you how that worked. I had a phone call from a cousin, Walter Levy, from Germany. He had been also in the concentration camp, and he knew the answer to my questions. He called me. He had escaped from a concentration camp and went back to Garzweiler, where he also lived, and told me on the phone that my parents and my sister Marianne were killed in a concentration camp.
Do you know the fates of other members of your family, the extended family? Did anybody survive?
Good question. I have a photo of that I looked at even today. Most of them did not survive on that photo of people who came to my home to celebrate. And I later on will show you the photo if you want me to. And I looked at all of them. My parents were on that photo too, my sister. and almost all of them were killed in concentration camps.
You told us several times that it was a different world and you didn't follow news the way we follow the news today, but did you follow the Nuremberg trials at all?
Vaguely. I knew about them, I read about them, and I knew about them. Follow is another word. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you feel justice was done?
Did I?
Did you feel justice was done at Nuremberg?
Well, yes. Well, I was very glad it happened, of course. Very glad. Yeah.
What do you remember about the birth of the State of Israel, and what did that mean to you?
Well, I was very, very, very happy to hear it, that finally there was a state of Israel, our state. Yeah, we feel very strongly Jewish and therefore strongly for Israel. Very happy about that.
How did you meet your husband, and where was he from?
He's also same background as I, and how did I meet him? It's a very simple and very nice story. My Aunt Fanny had a furnished room in the Weil household, and so I met Aunt Fanny, and she introduced me to the Weil family, and my husband and I, we fell in love. Very simple. Yeah. And when he proposed to me, he was living with his parents. I told you that already. I said, "Do I have to live with your parents, with my future in-laws?" He said, "Yes, but only for a year." And the year became 10 years. So I lived with my in-laws first 10 years of my married life, but it worked out well, really well.
You said he had a similar background. What's his story?
He came from Gernsheim am Rhein, and so that means he was also German Jewish refugee.
You married and did you have a family?
Yeah, I had my sister Hilde and at my wedding, and my cousin Max Henlein, who still lives here in Bel Air, and his son now lives in Bel Air. So I had a small wedding in the rabbi's apartment, not in a shul, just in the rabbi's apartment. He married us there. And because at that time I didn't have my parents here, as you know, so it was just a simple ceremony. But the good thing is we were very happily married for 68 years.
You have children and grandchildren?
I had I had 3 children. And when I say Ed, I had my son Franklin and my daughter Wendy. My middle son Stephen died in an accident, not an illness. I can talk about that if you want to, but my middle son Stephen, a very good-looking, tall, very, very pleasant person, died at age 54.
What did you tell your children about your childhood?
Well, we were always honest, and I talked about my childhood. I told them many of the good things. And of course, when they were very young, I wouldn't tell them about what really happened to, during those years. When my children grew up and became adults, and I must say, I'm very proud of my kids. Yeah, my son Frank, well, you can ask me later about my children, I guess.
You can tell us whatever you'd like about your children.
Yeah, okay, I like to show off. My son Franklin is a physician. That's and has been a doctor for 50 years, and he's now retired. And my daughter Wendy, who lives in New York, and we have very close relationship. Both my children and I, my both children with each other have a good close relationship and friendship. And now I have 4 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about your family?
Well, we're all close. That's a very good thing. I was always very close to my brother Erwin, who lived here, eventually here, and lived here in Laguna Woods Village in the Towers with his wife Sally. And we were really good friends. That's so wonderful. And I had a good friendship with my sister Hilda, who lived to the age of 100. And she lived in North Hollywood.
Have you ever gone back to Germany or England?
Yes, once. And the reason for that was my husband was invited by the town of Gernsheim. They invited him and me. And they offered us a hotel and a week there. And at first I was hesitant. But then we went, and we had because the people there at that time had been very kind to his family. So he had good memories of Gernsheim. And we did go. And we had a very, very pleasant time there. I met some of his friends, or his people that were friendly with his family. It was a very, very good thing.
Were you able to keep in touch with the family that helped you in England?
No. The ones where I lived in England, I don't understand myself in that respect. I never connected much with them afterwards. I'm still thinking about that. And I'm still regretting maybe I was not mature enough to think, but they never connected with me either. And we developed a very good friendship and relation. I could almost say relationship. But my life became very, very busy in New York. That's my excuse, of course, because I started working and taking care of myself. But I do regret that.
Have you remembered their name?
I have to look back. My son would probably remember, but at the moment, I would have to really research my brain.
That's okay. You've been here now for many decades in the United States. I was wondering if you could share with us how America's view of the Holocaust and what happened with the Nazis, how that has evolved, how that's changed over the years.
Okay.
From wartime through post-war through today. How has it changed?
Well, they're much more aware of what happened. There's much more written and shown about it, and that's a good thing. At first, people didn't even realize much because it was not much in the papers, I don't think. Was it? I'd like your opinion now. Did they write much about the Holocaust time and era? No?
It's not my testimony. There was something. It doesn't seem that there was a lot, but it's your testimony, not mine.
There was a lot. No, I'd like to.
No, I didn't say there was a lot. I said there was some, but it's your testimony, not my testimony.
Okay,
so
I just like your opinion.
How
yeah.
you
no, I'm not considering this now a testimony, but just a short interaction or conversation. I know this is not just an everyday kind of conversation. I know that.
Do you speak publicly, or have you spoken publicly about your experiences?
Yes,
especially
definitely, yes. I belong to a club called the Topic Masters here. It's like Toastmasters, and I have spoken clearly and even recently again about the Holocaust era. They wanted to know, and they know I'm a Holocaust survivor. And yes, I have spoken. I'm very comfortable speaking about it.
what are you doing these days to keep busy and active?
I do many things. I not only belong to clubs, I walk every day morning for 1 hour, in the afternoon again 1 hour. I exercise a lot. I play the piano and the accordion. That keeps me busy. I go on my computer, play Rummikub on my computer. And why not? And enjoy my life. I'm enjoying every day. I have many friends.
Go ahead.
No, I have many friends, and I have two friends who I call Holocaust survivors. One, Eddie Hoffman, lives right below me in my building. In fact, he came and visited me yesterday. And another one who is a Holocaust survivor who lives right nearby, and I'm friendly with them. And so the second one I mentioned now, I have a book here about him. Somebody wrote a book about his life as a Holocaust, during the Holocaust. Yeah, the title of the book is From Hell to the Promised Land. He went to Israel for a while, lived there for a while.
You told me you were interviewed by Leslie Stahl. Can
Yes.
you tell us what that's about?
Sure. I'm a volunteer for the research on aging. It's called the UCI 90 Plus Study. That's from the University of Irvine. And since I'm a volunteer in that research study, they wanted to make a program for television. And they connected and called me. I couldn't believe it when I got the phone call. This is Leslie Stahl. And she came here to Irvine, to a hotel, to interview me here. And she sent a cab to bring me there. And I was with her. And when I say there was a friend of mine, his name is Henry Tornell, who was also with me, and we were together. And so we were both interviewed together by Leslie Stahl. And it was about the research that we are on. Yeah, it's a research on aging called the 90 Plus Study, researching the brain of people over 90. That's the research study that I'm in.
Was that for a television show?
No, that comes every half a year. We are interviewed again. And what they're doing is, not for television, they're interviewing me twice a year. Each time I'm there for 2 hours, 1 hour of questions and 1 hour of other remembering sentences, remembering stuff. They're just testing the aging brain. And I want to see every half a year if the brain works still well half a year later. That's the idea of this research.
Maybe I should have been more clear. The interview you did with Leslie Stahl, was that for television?
That was for television, but it was never, it was, because we were videotaped. There was yes, it was for television. Excuse me. Yeah, in fact, I can still I can still see it on television, that one. It was televised.
What have we not mentioned that you would still like to talk about? What else comes to mind?
Well, I just want to say this. I'm, number one, very grateful for many things at this point in my life. If that is interesting to you, I'm very grateful, number one, that I'm in good health at this age, in very good health. I'm very grateful that I enjoy life, that I have many friends, phone friends. Of course, some people cannot walk or see me anymore, they're too old, but I have many, many people that I speak to often. I'm very grateful that I can still walk. I have a friend that I walk with every day, morning and afternoon. I'm very grateful for so many other things, phone calls, connections with people. I would like to be interviewed by Leslie. The 90 plus study. I'm very grateful I'm in that 90 plus study, which I look forward to. And I get reports from the 90 plus study, a printed report, how well I do. For instance, they say, with the first questions, I got 29 out of 30. That's, I can show it to you. It's printed. Yeah. And so it's a challenge for me, and I like challenges.
My last question. What message do you have for future viewers of this interview?
What advice do I have for?
What message do you have for future viewers of this interview?
Oh, what message? Well, I think being interviewed is very, very good, number one. It's good for the person who interviews me. It's good for me who have to think and give answers. So it's good for both ends. And I like it. It's, again, as I said, it's challenging. And that's a good thing for everyone. So I like, and I was looking forward to this today.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we conclude?
You know, I always feel if you're an optimist, my advice always is try to be optimistic. I'm an optimist by nature, and that means your day starts and you already think it's going to be a good day. That's how an optimist thinks of. It helps. It really does. And so people like, I don't know, I know a pessimist who wakes up in the morning and says already, I wonder what kind of day this will be. And I'm just the opposite.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you for coming here and interviewing me. It was a pleasure.
Please tell us, who is this in the photo?
In the photo is my sister Marianne on the top photo.
And her last name?
Marianne Levy.
And can you tell us when it was taken?
Well, I would have to figure that one out, because she was about how old would you think she was in that picture there? Young.
I couldn't guess.
No.
What do you, just give us an approximate age, or approximate year rather.
Yeah, okay. I haven't. She was maybe.
Was this before the war?
Yeah, she was maybe 4 years old on that photo. Not any more than that. 4 years old, very young on that picture.
And so what year approximately do you think this was?
Again, I'm not prepared I should have thought about that before you came, or before we did this, is what I mean.
Was it before World War II?
Yeah, we have to do that another time. Then I can remember what year that was taken, all that. I just thought we would show you photos. I did not know that I have to remember exactly what year that was. but that's what.
Okay. Do you know where it was taken?
That must have been taken in Germany, of course,
Oh,
because
okay.
she never came out of Germany. You know, she was killed in a concentration camp. That was Marianne.
How did you get this picture?
I've had it here for a long time. Let me just take a look myself what we're looking at. Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I'm connected. Yeah, hold my hand. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And now I have to concentrate.
Wait.
Oh. Okay. Now
Wait,
I have to. I see
1
what.
minute.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
We're still going if you want.
Okay.
No, cut. And who are these children?
Okay, Marianne, and the next one is Helen and Hilde. When we were young, we maybe were and we were in Germany, of course. There in our home, or we were photographed. Especially a photographer took that photo of us when I was approximately, I would think, 3 years old, and Hilde was maybe 4.5 years old on the second photo that we are looking at now.
So this was in the 1920s?
Yeah.
And your last name, please?
That was Hilde Levy and Leni Levy. In those years, I was called Leni, Leni, not Helene. They called me Leni.
Thank you. And who are these 3 children?
And then we had 3 children.
Who are these children?
My Hilde and Alvin and me, the 3 children at that time. My brother Erwin, Hilde Levy, and Helen Levy.
And do you know when or where this photo was taken?
It was taken in Germany, of course. My parents took us, I guess, to a photographer.
Would you say this was in the 1920s?
Sure. Yeah, correct. Definitely.
Thank you. Can you please tell us who are these people?
This is Helen Weil, Helen Levy, Hilde Levy, Alvin Levy, and Marianne Levy.
And which one are you? Can you describe
I am on the right
which
side.
one you are?
This one, can you point to it or something? I'm the taller, standing up here somewhere. Okay, I have the braids there, and we both have braids. That's me, that's Hilde.
What about this one?
With the braids,
Oh,
all of us.
we're looking at a different picture.
Yeah, I guess.
Are you the one with the short haircut with the bangs?
Which one are you in this bottom one?
Now, we're talking about the second one or the last one? The
bottom one.
Bottom one, okay. Hilde has glasses. My sister Hilde wears glasses. That's how I always find that. And I'm next to Hilde in the middle there. My brother Erwin. And is Marianne on it too? Is there another girl there? I cannot see well, so I cannot even see the photo. You said how many children are on there?
There's a little girl with light hair.
4. Yeah,
yes,
that's the 4 children, right? Yeah.
And do you know when or where this was taken?
Again, in Germany, of course. And when, let me see, I was maybe looking like I was 14 years old, so that would be 1935.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. It's not easy for me.
What can you tell us about this picture, please?
Okay. This picture was taken in the United States. We were gathered after his bar mitzvah, which did take place in a nearby shul, in synagogue. They came to our house to celebrate further, and therefore they were in the basement of our house in Bergenfield, New Jersey, on this photo, and they were all to celebrate. It was a finished basement where we entertained people.
Can you tell us any of the people in the photo? Like the boy, what was the boy's name?
But
the bar mitzvah boy.
Oh, that was Franklin, my son Franklin Weil.
And you were going to identify the lady in the hat? Who was the lady wearing the hat?
Aunt Fanny, who's a very important person in our lives. She sent the affidavits to all of us so we could come from Germany to the United States. One, not all together, but each year she sent an effort. She let another person come from Germany to the United States.
And did you mention the year that this was taken?
Did I? What was the question?
What year was it taken? If you know.
Well, I have to think of when my brother was. No, wait a minute. When Franklin was 13, and he's born 1977, 1990 then. I guess.
Well,
does it say in the back anything?
Can I show the back?
Sure.
Okay. It says 1958.
Okay, thank you. What can you tell us about this picture?
Well, this picture that we just showed you?
Yes.
This is a family of grandparents, granduncles, and aunts, and I don't remember them really except my grandparents.
Do you know where or when this photo was taken?
No, I do not where or when.
Okay, thank you. Can you please tell us who are these people?
These people are my sister Hilda, my brother Irvin, and my sister Mariana, and I. 4 children, the 4 Levy children.
And your full name, please?
And?
Your name, please.
Oh, Helen.
You said N.I.
Oh, and Helen Weil.
And do you know when or where this picture was taken?
This was taken, I believe, in the basement of my house in Bergenfield, New Jersey.
No, I'm going to stop you. We're looking at the picture of 4 of you. It looks like you're outside.
Outside somewhere. Oh,
I know you
okay, now I see
know
it.
you don't see well.
I don't see well at all, but now I know. We went
know.
into our garden. We're standing in the garden, I believe to be photographed. I only try to remember without even... It's, you know what, this is very difficult for me. But I'm not complaining, I'm just trying very hard. But when you lose your vision...
That's okay, so...
It's not easy.
I know you don't see well. Germany? Was this taken in Germany before the war?
No. This was taken not in Germany at all. No.
Where are the 4 of you standing?
Yeah, I would like to know myself. Okay. You see. in I think in our garden in Bergenfield, New
So
Jersey,
that would be in Germany.
in the United States. Yeah, I think.
Thank you. Can you tell us about this picture, please?
Okay. When I went to England, this very wonderful mother and son took me into their home so I could escape from Germany and live in England for a while until I could get to the United States. So they took me into their home, good people, and I lived there with them for a year and a half, very happily.
So this was taken in England.
Yes.
And who are the two people? Who are the two people in the picture?
Well, that's Mrs. Hyman, the woman who took me into her home, and it is, I guess, Helen Weil, me, Helen.
And do you have any idea approximately when it was taken?
Well, I look like I was maybe 14 or 15, and I was born 1921, 35, 36, 1936.
Thank you. What can you tell us about this photo?
Is there my parents and the two children? Yeah. Okay, so this is a very, very important and valuable picture. It's the picture of my house where we lived for many years, where I was born, and my parents and my sister Hilda and I were standing there at the entrance to the house. We were very small then. I don't know, by maybe 4 and 6 years old, maybe, or younger even. It's hard for me to tell.
So where was this taken?
In Garzweiler, Germany. No, wait, what am I saying? Yeah, but that is correct. Garzweiler, Germany. Yeah.
And would you say this was taken in the 1920s?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
Go.
Who are these people?
These are Bernard and Marianne Levy, my grandparents. Helen's grandparents.
Do you know when or where they were taken?
Yes.
This picture was taken?
When it was taken?
Yes, when?
No, I don't know the year. Do not. No idea.
And was it also taken in Germany?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you please tell us about this picture?
Okay, I'll try. I can take that off now too. Right? No, not yet. Okay. Well, this picture, for what I wish I could see better, is of much of my family who came to Garzweiler, and we were standing behind our house in the garden, and I can see my sister Marianne, a little girl at that time, and then even a smaller one, Margot, a niece of mine, a little tiny one, and then the family. And that's a very, very important picture to me because the only one I have of my family, of my large family.
So this was taken before the war.
Mm-hmm.
And in Germany. Can you tell me what was Margot's last name?
Levy. No, yeah. You see, my brother had my father, and his name was Sigmund Levy. He had a brother, Willie Levy, and they lived in a house next to us, and they had this little girl, and that's their child. Yeah, and so that means she was my niece.
Thank you so much. And this now concludes the interview today.